They gave him a medal. They shook his hand. They called him a hero. He smiled for the camera. He said the right things. He told the local newspaper that he was just doing his duty. That night, alone in his room, he sat on the edge of his bed and stared at the wall. He knew something they didn't. He wasn't a hero. He had run, and the medal on his chest was not an honor. It was a curse. 20 years later, he put a gun in his mouth and pulled the trigger. The medal did not save him. It killed him. This is the story of a medal that should have gone to a dead man, and the living man who carried it like a stone around his neck until he couldn't carry it anymore. James Crawford met a man named Robert at a veterans event in 1948. Robert had a medal, Silver Star, second highest honor for valor in combat. They stood in a room full of people who wanted to thank them. Old men, young women, children who didn't understand what they were looking at. Robert smiled. He shook hands. He was gracious and humble, and everything a hero should be. Then he found James in a corner, away from the crowd, and he said something James never forgot. "I don't deserve this." James didn't know what to say, so he just listened. Robert told him the story, not the one in the citation, the real one. His unit had been pinned down in a field in France, machine gun fire from a barn. Men were dying. Someone had to do something. Robert ran, not toward the barn, away from it. He ran for the tree line. He ran for cover. He ran because his brain decided that running was the only way to survive. Behind him, a sergeant named Miller grabbed the grenade launcher. Miller ran toward the barn. Miller took out the machine gun. Miller saved the unit. Miller died doing it. Robert survived. And when the officers came to write up the action, they needed a hero. Miller was dead. Someone else had to get the medal. Someone who had been there. Someone who could stand in front of a camera and tell a story. They chose Robert, not because he was brave, because he was alive. Robert never told anyone the truth. Not his wife, not his children, not his closest friends. He carried it alone. The medal in a drawer, the story on his chest, the shame in his bones. Every time someone called him a hero, he felt sick. Every time someone thanked him for his service, he wanted to disappear. He didn't earn that medal. Miller did. And Miller was dead because he was brave. And Robert was alive because he wasn't. That math never left him. Here is what nobody tells you about receiving a medal you don't deserve. It does not feel like honor. It feels like a life sentence. Every morning, Robert saw the medal in his drawer. Every morning, he remembered Miller. Every morning, he asked himself the same question. Why him? Why not me? The medal was supposed to be a symbol of courage. For Robert, it was a symbol of his cowardice, a daily reminder that he had run while another man died. He tried to give it back. He wrote a letter to the army. He explained everything, the running, the hiding, the truth. The letter was returned. No one had read it. Or maybe someone had read it and decided it was easier to keep the story as it was. So Robert kept the medal, kept the secret, kept the shame. For 40 years. He drank to quiet the voice that said, Miller died and you lived and you didn't earn it. Their alcohol worked for a while, then it didn't. His wife left him. His children stopped calling. He lost his job. He lost his house. He lost everything except the medal and the shame. And one night, alone in a rented room, he took the medal out of its box. He looked at it for a long time. Then he put it on his chest. And he did what Miller should have been honored for and what Robert could never escape. Psychologists call this imposter syndrome. It is usually discussed in the context of work or school. High achievers who feel like they don't deserve their success. But in combat veterans, it takes a different form. Not, I don't deserve my promotion, but I don't deserve to be alive. The soldier who receives a medal he didn't earn carries a heavier burden than the soldier who received nothing, because the medal is a public lie. And every time he looks at it, he is reminded of the truth. The brain does not know how to process this. There is no circuit for undeserved honor, no survival mechanism for shame that comes from being celebrated for something you did not do. So the brain does what it always does. It turns the volume down on the shame. But the shame does not disappear. It goes underground. It becomes part of who you are, a dark hum that never stops. Robert's medal was not just metal and ribbon, it was a mirror. And every time he looked at it, he saw the man he wished he had been, and the man he actually was. And the distance between them was unbearable. Here is the question everyone asks about Robert. Why didn't he just tell the truth? Why didn't he return the medal? Why didn't he explain what really happened? Because telling the truth would have meant admitting that he ran. And admitting that he ran would have meant facing the shame directly. And facing the shame directly, he believed, would have destroyed him. There was also another reason. Miller's family, his widow, his children. They believed Miller died a hero. They had his letter, his photo, his memory. If Robert told the truth, he would have taken that from them. He would have said, your husband died because I ran. Your father is dead because I was a coward. He could not do that. So he stayed silent for 40 years, and the silence ate him alive. This is the cruelest part of moral injury. The truth would hurt others. So you carry the lie, and the lie becomes heavier every year until you cannot stand up anymore. Robert never told his children about the medal. They found it after he died, in a drawer, wrapped in a cloth, with a note that said 3 words: give this back. They didn't understand. They thought he was being modest. They kept the medal. They displayed it at his funeral. They were proud of him. They never knew. And Robert died knowing that they never would. Not everyone keeps the medal. Some soldiers find the strength to refuse it, or to return it, or to tell the truth. Thomas was a medic in Vietnam. He was nominated for a Bronze Star after a firefight where he saved 3 wounded men. The citation said he ran through gunfire without hesitation. It said he was fearless. Thomas read the citation and felt sick. Because he had been terrified. He had run because he had no choice. He had saved the men because they were his friends. Not because he was brave, because he was scared of what would happen if he didn't. He wrote a letter to his commanding officer. He said, I don't want the medal. I was not brave. I was just doing my job. Give it to someone who deserves it. The officer called him into his office. He said, Thomas, every man who gets a medal feels like this. Take it. You earned it. Thomas refused. He did not take the medal. He came home with nothing, and he is alive today. He is 75 years old. He has a wife, children, grandchildren. He sleeps well at night. Thomas could not carry the weight of an undeserved medal, so he put it down. And that choice, he says, saved his life. Robert could not put it down. He carried it, and it crushed him. The difference was not courage. It was clarity. Thomas knew who he was. He was a medic who did his job, not a hero, just a man, and that was enough. Robert never knew who he was. He was the man who ran, and he was the man with the medal. And those two men could not live in the same body. Robert died in 1985. Liver failure. The drinking finally caught up with him. James went to the funeral. He stood in the back. He watched Robert's children cry. He watched Robert's wife clutch a framed photo of her husband in his uniform. The silver star was pinned to a cushion next to the casket. James thought about Miller, about the barn, about the medal that should have gone to a dead man and went to a living one instead. He didn't judge Robert, not anymore. He understood. Robert didn't ask for the medal. He didn't lie to get it. It was given to him, and he was too ashamed to refuse it, because refusing would have meant telling the truth, and telling the truth would have meant admitting he ran. So he carried it, like a stone around his neck, for 40 years, until he couldn't carry it anymore. James wondered if Robert was finally at peace. He hoped so. He wasn't sure. Here is what James eventually understood, not all at once, slowly, over decades. The word hero is too heavy for most men to carry, not because they aren't brave, because bravery is not a switch you flip. It is a moment, a second, a choice that happens faster than thought. Some men make the choice in that second, some don't. Most don't know what they would do until the second arrives, and by then it is too late to practice, too late to prepare, too late to be anyone other than who you are in that moment. Robert was not the man who ran toward the barn. He was the man who ran away. That was not a failure. That was just who he was, and who he was had kept him alive. But knowing that did not make the shame go away, because shame does not listen to reason. Shame listens to the voice that says, "You should have been better." And that voice never shuts up. The medal did not kill Robert. The shame killed him. The medal was just the shape the shame took. Robert died with his secret. James will die with his. Not because they are cowards, because the truth is too heavy to hand to someone else. The man who runs is not a hero, but he is also not a monster. He is just a man who made a choice in a fraction of a second, a choice he cannot take back, a choice he will explain to no one. The medal sits in a drawer, the shame sits in the chest, and both of them stay there until the day he dies. That is the moment he realized he wasn't a hero. Not when the medal was pinned on his chest, not when the crowd applauded. It was later, alone, in the dark, when he finally admitted to himself what he had done, and he never told anyone until it was too late. This is War Inside the Head from Mind Under Fire. Every episode tracks what combat does to the brain, not the explosions, the silence afterward, not the trauma, the transformation. Next episode, the switch inside every human. How ordinary people become torturers. If this stayed with you, hit subscribe, because some wars never end.